sitting with Donna Nelson, Vernon Memorial Hospice Program Director, and we're sitting in a very beautiful building that's been some time in the making, and we'll give folks a little video tour of that in a little while, but just wanted to talk to you a little bit first about how this building came to be. I think in the late 80s or early 80s, you probably you're part of the hospice program, and there was always a vision of having your own hospice facility. So talk to me about that process of where the vision came from for this and how we came to be sitting in this place.
Well, it has been an incredible trip. 1982 hospice started here at Vernon Memorial, and it started as a result of a question being asked by our community, coming to hospital administration at that time and saying, we've been reading about hospice, we've been hearing about this word hospice. Is it possible that we can have a hospice program here? And so the hospital said yes at that time. In 1982, hospice program was started at Vernon Memorial with a bunch of volunteers and a coordinator, which was an RN that they hired to start the program. And that nurse, Stephanie Weimer, or Jahowski is her name now, and she works in Madison at the UW-Madison Oncology Center. But she was our first hospice coordinator with a couple volunteers, namely Ann Anderson from the Westby area, taught in Viroqua for all the years and years ago, and Margaret Gulsvig, both names that are pretty familiar to our area. They were the volunteer and the first coordinator to actually start the program. Stephanie left the program, and I came into the program as a young nurse, filling in for her as she was on maternity leave. And I remember in 1986 taking care of a patient who was very stoic, very proud, and just really resistant to wanting to go to a nursing home, wanting to go to a hospital. She was nearing the end of her cancer illness and trying to find a place for her that was comfortable for her, where she had the privacy, the dignity. And that's actually where the dream of this started.
So prior to having this nice, beautiful building to operate in, talk to me a little bit about how the program kind of progressed through the years. I'm assuming it started with home health volunteers and going out to people's homes, and then tell me about the different, you have some different stages of care right now that you're able to offer. Talk to me, how did those develop?
So when the program started in 82, it was a nurse and volunteers going out into patients' homes, giving them advice for people who are terminally ill, giving them advice on equipment, pain and symptom management, being that friend or that brief respite period so somebody can run to the grocery store and not leave someone who's really critically ill or unsafe to be left alone, having them help. Or I remember our early volunteers coming to the hospital and staying with patients so families could go home and get sleep. In 1983, Medicare designed the Hospice Medicare benefit, and it includes 4 levels of hospice care. So if you or I, Tim, were told that we had 24 hours left to live, you know, when we think about that, where would we want to be? We want to be home with our family, with our friends, or with our own belongings. So that's the first level of care. Most patients want to be in their own home, and that's how hospice was developed, to enable families to stay at home and to be at home and not have to be in the hospital. So that's the first level of care, and that's the care that we started providing in 92. It's a care that we're still going to be providing regardless of having this facility. So the second level being continuous care in the home. If there's a symptom or crisis where a nurse has to be there to help that family, they pay for that level of care as well. Nurses on call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for families. When you're taking care of somebody who's very ill at home and appropriate for hospice, things don't happen 8 to 5. They usually happen in the wee morning hours or the late evening hours. And that's a really benefit to have a hospice nurse on call, to be able to problem solve, to go to the patient's home, to help figure out and talk to the physician what they need to do. And then the third level of care is inpatient acute care, which this facility which we're sitting in is going to be providing. Typically that had been provided at Vernon Memorial Healthcare, our hospital, But as we are a critical access hospital and we have 25 beds, we never wanted to, be concerned about, well, what happens if our orthopedic surgeon has the hospital full of patients with medical patients? What if hospice inpatients needed care? So the administration, when they, grabbed onto this wish, hope, and dream, it was really beneficial to try to improve the end-of-life care that we have in our area. So this inpatient acute care is for symptoms that are out of control, families that are nearing the end, patients that are nearing the end and cannot do it at home. A lot of people want to have death happen at home, but it gets scary at the end, and they maybe panic or get concerned that they're not doing the right thing. This facility will offer them an alternative to their home. And then respite care in 1983, when Medicare designed the benefit, still amazes me that they were so thoughtful, because respite care is provided by Medicare, medical assistance, and private insurances to pay for care for caregivers getting worn out and needing a break. So a patient can come into this facility for nothing out of control other than, they certainly are ill patients, but perhaps everything's controlled, but their caregiver's tired and worn out and needs a break.
Where does your passion for this come from?
Well, my passion for it comes from probably, working in it when I got out of nursing school in '83, coming to Vernon Memorial and thinking, I'm only going to be here a year because I had a scholarship from Vernon Memorial, and giving back what they had given me. And here I am 30 years later in my career looking at, I'm at a different end of care. My first love of nursing was birth and working in labor and delivery, and that's what I came here to do. And isn't it funny, as I'm now at the end of life, but I find so many similarities, and I guess that's probably where my passion comes, is that the beginning of life and the end of life are very, very similar processes.
And then I also think about, passion and the privilege was working with Dr. Bland. Dr. Bland brought me into this world at Vernon Memorial. Isn't that a silly thing? He was there when I was born, and being able to be there at the end of his life. And he was our medical director from '96. And I said, he was working on the campaign at the end of 2010. He died April 15, 2011. And he was our medical director until February 2011. And he died on hospice.
He always joked about that, that might be a reality. But the circle of life and really fulfilling what our wishes, hopes, and dreams are, I think that's a forte of Vernon Memorial. We've always focused on quality of care, giving the best to our community that we can to make sure that they don't have to travel far. And to have a facility like this is really a dream come true. And maybe that's been a lot of passion and fuel, Tim, to getting this done, was to get this done for Doc and Bud, who couldn't be here to see it come to life. But their wish to hope that it was touching people forever, it's going to be quite a living legacy.
I hope someday to have walking paths and trails all over here so that patients on a nice day, even in the middle of a rainy day, they can go outside and be outside. I remember being with Dr. Bland as we were touring hospices and hospice facilities, trying to put our wish and dream list together. And we were at one in Madison, and I remember it was a sunny day, and Dr. Bland went inside, I'm outside, and I remember walking and seeing a little girl's hand on the head of her dad's bed, and she and her mom were pushing their father around this path, and it was like, and Dr. Bland, how sad is that? And it was like, it was sad, but yet it was living, that family was still living, and that little girl was enjoying being able to push her dad on a ride. And isn't that what it's all about? We don't know the number of days or the minutes, but it's all about who is important to us and how we spend those minutes. And for that little girl that day, that was a very special day.
Talk a little bit about, I know when you did the groundbreaking, you talked a little bit about those folks and how instrumental they were in this being here.
Absolutely. Both of those men were pillars in our community, but also pillars in our organization, Vernon Memorial. They were Dr. Bland, along with the Dr. Starr, Dr. Oppert, the big boys like Dr. Vernon David, I still call them the boys, and Dr. Edward, you know, really iconic physicians that, you know, when I started my practice, they were long established here. Dr. Bland, as I said, you know, picked up the wish, the hope, and the dream as being a medical director, and really actually had many conversations with the board, with administration of the hospital at that time to really push, you know, we need to have this facility, we need to have this a part of our services. And Dr. Bland Bekkedal was on the hospital board, hospital foundation, and our hospice advisory board since I have been a part of hospice. So they picked up the wish, hope, and dream, and were the energy, and really made sure that it kept, it was still in the forefront of administration, that it still was a part of the strategic plan. And both of those gentlemen, unfortunately, had to use hospice. Unfortunately, but fortunately, because I think it really showed them in a very personal way of how much this level of care and what this really means to our community.
What do you think Bud and Dr. Bland would say to you if they were sitting here?
If they were sitting here right now,
I think they would say, good job done. I think everything that we have put together has been how they had wished, hoped, and dreamed it would be. And I know that they're, you know, I think that they would be very proud as to how the team has worked together, and the hospital and the community, to be able to create this and have this in Viroqua. During our open house, we heard constantly, I can't believe this is in Viroqua. And it's incredible that we have this facility here in this level of care.
It is really an amazing thing that a community this size, or anywhere really in Wisconsin, has something like this. How many other facilities are there?
Wisconsin is probably the leader in hospice inpatient facilities. There are 11 similar facilities in the state of Wisconsin. The facility closest that provides this same level of care would be in Madison, the Grace Hospice, or the Donna Marilyn Anderson Hospice House in Fitchburg. And then there is 2 in Milwaukee, the Cathy Hospice and the Zilber. And then there's also, between Madison and Milwaukee, there's a Rainbow Hospice in Jefferson, Wisconsin. Toma has a hospice, an excellent hospice program.
So, how important do you think this facility is for a community like Viroqua?
I think it's huge. It's going to be able not only to serve our community, but you know, we've had questions through the years of patients that are in those other facilities and they want to be home and they want to be close to home, or let's say a patient goes to La Crosse and has a stroke or a major heart attack, and that patient gets to a point where medicine can't fix what's going on, especially with a stroke. You know, medicine, we do all the testing, do everything we can, and oftentimes those patients are offered an inpatient facility stay in that hospital. Patients can opt out and want to come back home and have that same level of care at home.
People can come back home, and Viroqua being the center, just like our county seat, for all the different counties and all the different villages and little towns around here, this seems to be centrally located, and hence that's why we chose where we were going to create the facility. We have 6.5 acres here. We have, you know, room to expand should the need be. Dr. Bland and Gary Steiner and past board members were very emphatic about making sure that this building has a vision, that we have created. How do we expand? The infrastructure is all in this building to create 16 rooms. We started with 4 private room suites, but we can expand 4 at a time.
All right, well, I think that about covers it.
Okay.
We appreciate it. Donna Nelson, manager for the Home Hospice Program, the Hospice Program at Vernon Memorial Hospital. It's Great Rivers News. This is Tim Hunt.